Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. My name is Mo Amir, and we've been talking about social media outrage. So I'm sure many of you, especially those of you who follow me on Twitter, @VANCOLOUR, are thinking to yourself, but Mo, how can you, political commentator who generates so much social media outrage, complain about that very social media outrage? And you know what? Fair question. Do political commentators like myself bear responsibility for outrage culture? Well, I'm going to look inward with our featured guest, a weekly columnist for the Washington Post and a professional YouTuber with 900,000 subscribers. He is JJ McCullough. JJ, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. So you and I, with our hot takes online and in print and on television sometimes, we tend to rile people up online, whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
Do you think that we are contributing to outrage culture online?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think, there's no two.
So we are the baddies.
Well,
that's what you're saying.
Well, I think the thing is that we are part of a new economy, right? Which is sort of like the takes economy, the punditocracy, right? Which has always existed to some degree. I mean, there's always been newspaper columnists, you know, there's always been talking heads on television. But the barrier to entry is much lower than it used to be, thanks to social media. You know, there are people that exist basically only as sort of like Twitter personalities or you know, YouTubers or what have you. And that what I think that means is just it's a very, very competitive segment of the economy in a way it didn't used to be prior. And the way sort of you establish your brands, the way you make a living doing this is, I think, by consistently raising the temperature, by having hotter and hotter and hotter takes, right? Because that's how you get noticed, because it's a sea of noise. You're surfing your, you know, Twitter feed and it's just a bunch of people yammering on about politics. How do you get noticed? How do you get those precious, you know, retweets? It's by ratcheting stuff up a bit, you know? Who are the people that we know when we think about like the defining pundits of our day? You know, it's people like Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Steven Crowder, right? Sure. People who have specialized in being as outrageous and you know, sort of sensationalistic as possible, because that's how you make a living doing this.
And so when people say that social media is leading to greater polarization, you've just described how that's being done, because there is that incentive to get those eyeballs, to be a little more extreme, to be out there.
Yeah.
And so I guess we are the baddies, even though I don't see either of us as being, you know, that extreme in terms of our takes that we make.
No, it's true. But and I, in fairness to myself, I do try to sort of keep things mellow as much as I can. I mean, obviously, we all have issues that trigger us more than others, right?
Absolutely,
and so like some of my opinions that I'll express on, you know, issue X might be much more fiery than on issue Y, right? As opposed to there's some people that are just, you know, on 11 at all times, right? But I mean, it's the reality of the economy, as I said. And I think that part of the issue that sort of people like you and I face is, regardless of what opinions we're expressing, we're seen as just being part of the problem by the fact that we've opted into this career, right? So like the idea, and you know, this is sort of something that I think about a lot, where people say that they're interested in going into the kind of line of work that, say, I'm in. They want to be pundits, they want to be talking heads, they want to be on podcasts and this kind of thing. And there's always a kind of sense where it's like, well, does the world really need more of those kind of people? Do we need more pundits? There was a time, you know, I think there was a time when, you know, people would say, well, you know, the pundit class is very narrow and very unrepresentative and there's not enough diversity of opinion and so on and so forth. You know, this is sort of arguments I remember hearing like the 90s and early 2000s, when there was a lot more sort of gatekeeped media. But now that we live in the era of social media, which I think is a more meritocratic or sort of like more capitalistic, even more democratic sort of culture, I think it's harder to argue that we're sort of suffering from that, you know, dearth of diversity. I think there's
just laying like the biggest guilt trip on me right now, JJ. What is this? I mean, I agree with you to a certain point. I think that we do need different pundits, particularly when we talk about some of our national newspapers and who the columnists there are. But I think you hit on something really interesting in terms of the social media element, which is there's this level of interactivity where a hot take just snowballs. Right. So as opposed to just something you read and then you set it down, it's now you comment and then someone comments on your comment and then someone else comments. And so it's not even us necessarily that I think are raising the temperature. It's the entire ecosystem, right?
Yes. And I mean, and now you kind of have like this kind of like meta punditry, right? Where it's like the punditry about the punditry and people who are famous for just being like controversial, right? Like the pundits make news to an extent they never did previously, right? The degree that somebody like Ben Shapiro has as a celebrity, as a guy who's known just for being controversial and just sharing opinions, like that really does sort of strike me as like unprecedented, right? Like I remember actually, like, you know, when I was a younger man, like you remember Ann Coulter, right?
Yes.
And I remember like Ann Coulter at the time was seen as this like deeply like shocking figure, right? But it's like she was like in many ways ahead of the time. Like that's where everything is. And it doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left or anywhere in between. Like we're all kind of Ann Coulters now because that's the sort of
thing. It's really interesting that you're bringing up American examples and Canadian examples, though. I mean, I guess Jordan Peterson to a certain degree, but he is very much an American pundit.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I agree. He sort of, and you know, that's also the economic incentive structure. And I mean, I see that a lot on YouTube as well, right? Like the Canadian pundits on YouTube, you know, they all tend to drift into American political commentary because that's where the money is. But also, you know, American politics is very polarized. You know, there's two clear tribes that are going at each other. You know, everything is debated in America to a degree that it's, you know, not debated here, right? You know, they're still having culture wars about abortion and LGBT rights and healthcare, and like a lot of issues that are, you know, quote unquote closed in Canada are still very open. And, you know, people want to participate in open debates, right? Even if they come from a closed debate country, they still want to, you know, raise elbows with the rest of them, right?
So you and I, what responsibility do we have to our audience? Because we are opinionated. I think we are well-informed, or at least we try to be as well-informed as possible. Yes. I don't think we're necessarily hacks where we're, you know, trying to represent one party or another.
Yes.
What responsibility do we have to our audience to, even if they disagree, to keep the temperature even keel?
Well, I think you have to act with integrity, right? Like, I think there's nothing wrong with expressing strongly held opinions if you're arguing in a good faith sort of way, right? Like if you're not engaging in, you know, all of the sort of like logical fallacies and sort of propaganda tactics, right? That, you know, I think we associate with the worst forms of political commentary, right? Like I mean, I like working at the Washington Post because they force me to always cite my sources, right? So every time I make a statement, they require me to like link to a corroborating thing. And, you know, they hold me accountable, which is good. You know, I think this is actually a problem. I think a lot more pundits could use editors, you know, when it comes to what they write. You know, a lot of these people are now working for hyper-partisan outlets who just only care about the outrage and just only care about, you know, the ideological correctness of the argument and not, you know, the integrity. But yeah, you have to have integrity. You have to sort of have some sort of ethical code that defines sort of boundaries for yourself and what lines you won't cross, and have an idea of like what you don't want to be, right? Like have some sort of ideal in your mind of the kind of pundit that you don't want to be and measure yourself against that. And so if you think like, would pundit X do this? Well, then don't let yourself do that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I will say for my commentary, when I do rants on this show, Czech does make sure that I have citations. They aren't shown on the show, but internally they are something that I have to divulge as well. JJ, a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Pleasure was all mine.
Absolutely. Folks, that was JJ McCullough, professional YouTuber and columnist for the Washington Post. We're going to record some overtime with JJ, so find This is VANCOLOUR wherever you listen to your podcasts for that extended chat. Now, after some business, can social media outrage actually do good? A local journalist generated a lot of Vancouver-based outrage that actually led to something positive and kind of cool. We'll talk about it up next.